What's going on? Welcome to a brand new episode of Breakaway Coverage. I'm your host, Giancarlo Nadeau. Absolutely delighted to be joined by Tessa Wilson, MACP and RCC, also a former college athlete working with Unmasked Performance. Tessa, how's everything going? Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, really good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat and bring some awareness to mental health in particularly female hockey.
No, I appreciate you reaching out, and I think it's going to be a great podcast episode, especially, as you've mentioned, it being a big month with mental health, and it's something that we want to really make sure we touch on here. So I'm glad you're here to speak about it. Let's start with finding out what made you want to become a hockey player.
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town in Saskatchewan, and I guess in Saskatchewan, that's what everyone does is play hockey. So I started playing hockey. My parents put me on skates when I was 3 years old, and I think ever since then, I just kind of did it. I made lots of good buddies playing hockey, and I think as you're younger, of course, that's what pursues you to keep playing. And then I think as I got to higher levels, I just really enjoyed it. It came naturally. Yeah, and then I got different opportunities to continue my hockey career throughout minor hockey and then to U Sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mentioned at the top of the show that you were a former college athlete. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I think it was lots of good came from it, but I think I had lots of challenges throughout my career, and I think I can understand what athletes go through the challenges, and can also celebrate the successes that athletes experience too.
I think that's very important, especially for what you're doing,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, anybody can help an athlete, but to truly help an athlete as the best as you possibly can, you got to be one, and you are one.
Mhm.
You've been in those high pressure games and those high pressure moments. So, how do you think that impacts the way that you're able to help an athlete?
Yeah, I think when athletes come to me, it's so refreshing and nice for them to have someone that can relate to their experiences and can understand some of the challenges that they may have gone through. And I mean, even if I don't understand, I'm here to understand or let them share their story and journey with me so that I am able to further understand it. And I think even if I haven't necessarily experienced it, I still get it to some extent because I was an athlete.
Yeah, just jumping back to, when you first laced up your skates, did you have a favorite NHL team?
Um, when I was little, I don't know. I think I was kind of pushed for the Toronto Maple Leafs. My whole family was. But then I kind of jumped ship to the Calgary Flames. And I mean, now that I'm in Vernon, I kind of jumped ship again to the Canucks.
You know what though? It's good that you're cheering for the Canadian team. So 3 for 3 on Canadian teams. So
Yeah.
I respect it. I respect it.
Yeah.
What about a current PWHL team? Have you had the chance to keep up to date on those teams?
I wouldn't say I have a favorite team, but I mean, like, I am here for the Sass girls for sure, like Emily Clark.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what a playoff performance she continues to have there with the Ottawa Charge. Emily Clark, she does it all for the nation's capital. So she continues to put on a show, and it's got to be pretty cool to see some representation from the province.
Yeah, for sure.
Talk to me a little bit more about Unmasked Performance. What is it that you're doing?
Yeah, so Unmasked Performance is an organization I've created to support athletes going through mental health challenges in sport. So I have a master's of arts in counseling psychology, and I'm also a registered clinical counselor with the British Columbia Association of Clinical Counselors. Um,
That's a tongue twister.
yeah. So I guess throughout my experience, I experienced so much challenges, whether that be like managing my relationship with the coaches, finding my sense of belonging on a team, pressure to perform, trying to figure out ways that I can increase ice time. Um, all while I think this developed these symptoms of anxiety and depression in my life throughout my college career. And I just never really was urged to seek support that could help me through that. And after talking to tons of athletes, I can understand how many athletes feel isolated and alone in these situations, and how mental health is almost stigmatized in sport. And I mean, it's come a long way since I played, but I guess I just wanted to create a resource and space for athletes to come and be able to discuss these challenges, or like I said, celebrate success too, because I recognize that tons of greatness comes from sport also. I just don't want athletes to ever feel like they're alone.
We've talked about this before we jumped on about mental health and the importance of it and prioritizing it. It's different for everybody. It affects everybody differently.
Mhm.
But we're going to specifically focus on how it affects women hockey players, women athletes.
Mhm.
With the PWHL, of course, getting to what it is, players are more on this in the spotlight than they've ever been before. You know, the pay is something that needs to get better.
Mhm.
Everything is kind of just beginning for these athletes. They're kind of in unfamiliar territory. How do you think their mental health is, just kind of overall as a group?
Yeah, I think like obviously it's super exciting to be starting something so new and groundbreaking for women's hockey. And I can also see the immense pressure that might come with this, right? Like they're trying to perform like maybe that pressure to perform and be as big as the NHL. That's that's a ton of stress and pressure on these women. Like we said, the pay difference. So some of these women might still be having to work jobs. So it's managing working, training, game schedule, right? All that just puts a ton of stress and pressure on these women, and can become super overwhelming trying to navigate all that. And then there's also, as a woman, you maybe eventually start thinking about what's my life going to look like in the future. Like maybe I want a family, maybe I want to experience motherhood. So I mean, there's always that or internal pressure coming from us all, as well, especially as a pro athlete and trying to make that decision. Or how can you do both?
What are some of the ways that you can prioritize your mental health and improve your mental health as an athlete in women's hockey?
Yeah, I think for sure is finding someone that you feel comfortable with talking to that is a licensed practitioner, and trained in mental health. But I think some ways that you can do that is finding a plan for you that prioritizes your overall well-being. Um, so that can be like rest times. When can I have time to rest? That's a huge one, especially for these women who are navigating the intense schedule that they have right now, right? While trying to also maybe work on the side.
You've talked about it. I'll bring it up again because I think it's important that people understand
Mhm.
what these women are doing. Not only are they playing hockey, a lot of them are mothers, a lot of them are in relationships, so they're dealing with young kids. Some
Mhm.
have more than one kid, right? There's a lot of different things that are going on in their lives outside of the game itself. And it is super important to prioritize your mental health. You see it a lot in sports where a lot of fans, really want to get behind the athletes, but at the same time, in a way, they're stalling the athletes from reaching their potential because they're putting a lot of pressure and they're putting a lot of stress on them. And you're kind of starting to see that in the PWHL a little bit more as well.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
So it's crazy. But I mean, you also brought up a good point in making sure you have somebody who's licensed, who knows what they're talking about, who knows what they're doing, and that's something that you want to be doing for some of these people as well.
Yeah, and I think like as an athlete, I mean, we have our parents and we know they're always going to have our back and they're always going to think we're like the top dog out there. Or we have our buddies that are always going to root for us. But I think having an unbiased third party is so important too, that is removed from the situation, right? And it can be worrisome to be talking to your coaches or teammates about it. Who knows how that could affect performance or the way your coach looks at you, right? There's always these internal thoughts or stresses about what that may be.
I want to talk a little bit more about your personal hockey journey. How do you think the game has shaped who you are both on and off the ice?
Yeah. Um, I think throughout my career, it's created all these amazing characteristics. Like I'd say I'm pretty driven and hardworking, and I think throughout your career. I mean, the scheduling with the training, the practices, the gone every weekend for games, all while managing school, right? Like it's big demands. And I think throughout that, it's really helped me develop these characteristics and be able to juggle things and cope differently than if I wouldn't have played hockey.
We love hockey. It's a great game, but it's got a lot of highs. It's got a lot of lows. Is there a
Mhm.
moment that stands out to you as a turning point, either emotionally or mentally?
Mhm. Like in a good way or a bad way?
Yeah, sure. Let's take it both ways. Give me a
Okay.
positive moment and give me a negative moment. Because at the end of
Okay.
the day, hockey's full of both.
Yeah. I think one of the most amazing moments I've had playing hockey was I was playing in Weyburn for the SFH Triple AHL or whatever. And we ended up winning league that year. And then we had to go to Westerns against Manitoba or Eastern, whatever it was. And our rink was packed full of people, like 2,000 people. And I'm just never played in that kind of energy before, I guess, like, or that kind of crowd. And it was just such a amazing feeling. What an adrenaline rush. And I scored 2 goals and I got an assist or
Nice.
something in our last game where we won. And it was just like, after you'd score, it was such an electric feeling. Like, yeah. And I think that was a big moment for me, where I was like, I love this sport. Like this feeling, no one can ever take this away from me. It's amazing. And then I remember actually after that, my parents came out on the ice and I just knew this was like my last home game in minor hockey and my parents were there and it was just so special. And I just remember like bawling. I was like, I don't know, it was just kind of like a bittersweet in a way, you know? Like it was amazing. We won and it was such a high. And then, it's like, oh man, this was kind of the end of it. But then of course we had SO Cup, but not in my home rink.
What's it like for you to see how far the game's come for women athletes, from when you were playing to where it is now?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It's almost crazy how much it's turned into a business now, which I think can again add pressure and stress to female athletes. But I mean, the opportunities are so amazing to be able to play at a national level in front of like on TSN and TV. Like the only time that ever happened when I was growing up was when it was the Olympics. So it's amazing and it's creating all these mentors for young women to look up to and hope to be one day.
I've spoken to a couple of coaches who coach female hockey, and they've all said the same thing. Not every player is the same. You can't treat them the same. It's not a cookie cutter recipe to success. So, how important is that to understand for something and, a role that you do, working with athletes, making sure that they're not being treated the same and that everybody is different?
Yeah, I think that's the lens I really come from is knowing that everyone has their own story and their own experience, and how you may perceive my experience isn't I'm what I see it as. So I think it's just always understanding that everyone has their own thought process about how it's going, and the way that they communicate is always different, right? So, and that's something I always push for, especially between coaches and players, is always having that open communication, although it can be super intimidating to be talking to someone like higher up and worrying how it may impact you. In the end, it's just super crucial and it's transferable into your everyday life, right?
Was there ever a moment for you as a player when you really wanted to talk to somebody outside of your team and family environment?
Yeah, I think so. I think I just didn't know how to. And I didn't know that there was resources out there to talk to people. And I think maybe looking back at it, it was so stigmatized when I was playing that it was almost like if I talk to someone, I'm weak, you know? And I think it can still be viewed as that. So I just want to bring more awareness to saying that you're not weak if you need to talk to someone. In the end, it's probably going to better your performance, right?
How do you think your playing career and, the playing career of your teammates would be different if you knew there was somebody that you could have talked to?
I really often ponder this thought sometimes for myself. I wonder if my resiliency could have been strengthened through that. And I wonder if I could have had a different outcome with like the longevity I ended up playing, you know?
Yeah,
And I wonder if I could
100%.
have learned how to communicate differently with my coach and with some of my teammates, you know?
Do you think current teams are doing enough to support the whole athlete?
Um, I think it's definitely better than when I played, but I still think there's room to grow. And I know talking to some athletes that they still don't feel comfortable approaching their coach or they're worried about how it if they do, how it will impact their performance, right? So I think there's tons of growth.
No, I agree. Where do you think the biggest gaps are?
Um, I definitely think the coach athlete relationship um, needs to improve and communication needs to get better there. Um, and I think that's probably the biggest gap. And I also think another big gap is teams providing resources for their players. Like you can encourage someone to go talk to someone, but as a kid, you're already overwhelmed playing sport, managing expectations, your workload at school, you name it, you know? So it's like to go out and find someone that can be super intimidating.
If it was up to you and you had the opportunity to redesign the support structure around young hockey players, what
Mhm.
key resources would you include?
Yeah, I think um, it would be really cool for teams to have a sports psychologist and a mental health counselor on board with their teams. So, and make mental health like open up the communication about it just so athletes feel comfortable coming to their coaches and saying, "Hey, like I'm really struggling with this. Could I talk to the mental health counselor? Or my performance is hindering in this area. I really think I could use the sports psychologist today." And I think in the end that would really increase performance on teams and most importantly, create a better well-being for the players.
I'm going to wrap it up by asking you a question about the players.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody starting out in hockey who may not be familiar with the resources that are around them, or somebody who does know that there are resources around them, but maybe isn't quite sure if they want to talk to somebody about the issues that they're having?
Yeah. I think it can be super intimidating and scary, but most people who are here as a resource just want to help you. And it's okay to reach out and ask for help because at some point in our everyone's lives, we all need that extra support and it's okay.
No, I love it. And the last one for you, Tessa, and thanks again for jumping on and talking. Where can people find you if they want to reach out and talk to you?
Totally. They can email me at unmaskedperformance@gmail.com and visit my Instagram page if you want at Unmasked Performance.
Fantastic. Tessa Wilson, MACP, RCC, also a former college athlete with Unmasked Performance. Tessa, a pleasure. Thanks so much for doing this and for bringing spotlights on mental health. It is something that does not happen enough, so it's great to see that you are doing it.
Thank you. Nice chatting with you.
That was Tessa. I'm John Carlin Ado. We're going to be back next week with a brand new episode of Breakaway Coverage. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.